We're ready to go, Hollis? Ready to go. Ready to go. Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for coming in tonight. I believe we have a quorum. We don't have any visitors today, except for Darren. We'll say Darren's a visitor, but not really. So I guess first thing to do is you've all had a chance to review the agenda. Any conflict of interest declarations that anyone would like to make before we move forward? Hearing none, thank you. You've all had a chance to review the agenda. I think if everybody has had that opportunity, there's no questions or comments, and some of them be approved.
I move to adopt the agenda for August. Oh, Jim, did you?
No.
Sorry, I thought you moved your hand. Sorry.
Seconder, Harvey, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. We've had a chance to review the minutes of the board meeting July 27th. There are no comments or questions about those. If I could have someone move that they be adopted as presented.
I'll move adoption.
Thank you, Jim. Seconder. Al, thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Business arising from previous minutes or the previous meetings, budget priorities. I think that was brought up. And Paulus, I'll let you speak to that one.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just going to share my screen here. And this is a single slide. So all it was, I took what's in the budget there, and I split the corporate allocation because that does throw a number a little bit sometimes. And the outside inputs, which is going to be some RSSF, or if I'm getting it from a government department like THC, or I'm getting it from Petal or Working MB, or whoever that is, goes in the outside input. And then the 2024 member costs. So everything I didn't get paid for goes in the 2024 member cost. And then I also showed what the current budget is, 2023. So see the difference between last year and this year. Only thing of note here is that I don't have all the inputs yet. I literally 3:59 p.m. today got the notice about the other fund for local governance reform implementation fund, I think it's called. So there's going to be some money from there. Here's Mr. Henry.
Sorry, tell you for time.
Welcome aboard.
So there's going to be some money there that I have to apply for, but there's a pretty good chunk of funding in there from my first glance of it. Literally, like I said, it was an hour ago I read this. So there's a $200,000, 100%, and then anything over and above the $200,000 funded 80%. But it's only a specific. So things that were related to setting up for new services or some of the things to do with new services. So I'm gonna have to go back and go through things like even stuff like renovation costs downstairs because it's retroactive to a certain date. So there's going to be some recovery there. I don't know what that's all going to look like yet. And the total amount for the process is $5.6 million. So there should be $400,000 in there. One thing that I did in there was they included vehicles. Remember I was talking about leasing new vehicles? Well, maybe I can get them paid for it.
Very good.
It won't hurt to try. So I don't have that stuff in there yet. There's also not in there because again this was here. There's some funding coming over to us from CTRTA. We haven't went all out, but that's going to be applied to the tourism promotion. So when that applies to the tourism promotion, that means a reduced regional service support fund, the equivalent amount, and I can move that down to finance. to the north side of it. So I think we're looking at in the order of $50,000 to $60,000 from that one as well. So not final. I don't have all the inputs yet defined, but that's essentially what it's looking like right now. Last year, this year, you can see there's not big differences. The only real difference there is in recreation other. So I split out the recreation cost sharing because the cost sharing is the in and out money. But the other is the trails project is the biggest of that. So that's the trail mapping, guidebook creation, plus the website stuff that goes along with that. This is outside of Coastal Lake Trail. Coastal Lake Trail is a separate project, which is funding that we've been getting and kind of flowing from we've been managing that project quite a bit too. But this is every other trail in the region. That's a big piece of the other recreation. Plus, there's a website that we need to kind of revisit and fix and do better on, which is our. It's all recreation resources in the region, and so you can sort by age, you can sort by activity, you can sort by lots of things, and you can find everything going on in the area for recreation. That was the other piece of that, and there's some more work there.
And there's a wage in there.
Yes. That would be because we're gonna have to actually BS map some of the trail and get a comprehensive because trails are important part. Well, they also go to tourism and other things. That's what, and that came out of nothing I invented. It came out of our strategic plan committee that was formed, and as we're going through. One of the priorities was identified for recreation in the region was trails and then various other activities.
So where you got the $87 or whatever, so do you need anything from us to approve anything so you can get the 80? We can make it work from inside the budget we've already.
Yep.
Are we meeting again next week just in the budget? Or?
I'm not sure. We can discuss that if you want.
I don't know, another night set up.
Yeah, I was thinking, basically, the budget has to go out to the municipalities on the 14th September. And so our next meeting where we sit down as a working group, we could finalize our last comments on that with.
Before this municipality.
Yeah. And then we can take it back to our municipalities, respective municipalities, and have a go at it. So I was kind of hoping we didn't have to meet next week.
Because the following week we have that meeting with Chris Austin.
Right.
On the
Yeah.
14th.
I would appreciate a little bit more time. I don't even have the budget yet. I haven't even done it yet. So
I think. So we do have a date set.
Well, let's shoot for before the 14th, but
They're calling people yesterday.
that meeting with Chris Austin, that's around the 7th, yeah.
Our CAOs are invited to that too.
Yeah.
Well, I told him I didn't have a CAO, but I had a guy I could take him. Well, we'll test that later. Right now, we're worried about you, whether you're gonna make it around.
So you can bring something, so make sure they have enough food.
Maybe ask him.
So at this point, let's keep it loose on when we're gonna meet again on the budget so that we give a little more time to get that budget process going, which is coming down from the province.
well, yeah, form. I mean, they've never been this late with the form. Last year when they did the form, it was missing every single form. It's a big spreadsheet. There was no formulas in it. So Mark took like a day and a half just putting the formulas back in. So I probably be like that this year, but you know, I can't speak to it. We will at least get our version of the budget. So we have our internal kind of version. It's the same numbers. It's just the form is the form that we have to submit to the province and stuff, but our version looks a little bit different.
But I guess going back to the diagram, anybody who wants that, you can set out to them.
Absolutely, yeah.
Basically, the big numbers here, the real changes are in community development. You see it going from 39 last year to 77 this year. Well, that delta is what we're paying for our grant writer. So we'll soon find out whether that guy's individual is worth the money that we're paying him. And that, I think, will prove really beneficial, hopefully, to the region. And of course, the last big one, as Hollis pointed out, is under the recreation. And so that's going to take some discussion as to whether we really need to move forward with that this year, or let's just try and sort ourselves out first, and then maybe next year we take a look at it. But, those are the two that are gonna, I guess, be the outliers. Everything else is pretty much as it was last year, and shouldn't impact us too badly at the municipal level.
We've been in talks with a couple of different creative firms, good creative firms, and this is about creating the tourism brand for the region. And also they will be creating a website and probably some of the materials that were used for online advertising and whatnot. Most of that I'm going to be able to get paid by this new fund, which is huge. But when it comes to the branding part, there's a point where I'm going to have to get you guys involved, because obviously you're going to want to know what that is, have some input there, right? So that'll be later on this fall, probably.
That funding's not to a theme that they're already looking for?
It's tied to doing what we said we were going to do in our strategic plan. That's what it's tied to.
So it'll be interesting, because John, with your new organization or your new municipality, trying to figure out who you are.
Exactly.
And then Denny's doing the same thing, trying to get recognition. He's already in 2 different RSCs and trying to get that recognition to the RSC 10. And so there's it's interesting, and St. Stephen, St. Andrews the same, with very large municipalities trying to sort out who they are and what the brand should be. I think it'll be an interesting exercise. To go through that.
Yeah, they're good. They're firms. I'm familiar with a couple of them that we've spoken to. There's one firm that they've done a lot of work for the cross. There's another firm out of Halifax who I'm familiar with. They've done tremendous work. And there's another firm. They're kind of a national firm. They have offices in sort of across. So and these are top. Like I would expect top level work of this.
I'm just saying, I don't know who brought it up, but the meeting, Austin, you can bring someone else too besides your town manager. Or like another counselor.
I guess on the tourism promotion thing, which I think we all need to be involved in, but it does kind of, I think, lend itself to what one of our concerns was the last time we talked about that. And the priorities and the capacity that we have to deal with all of these things, given everything else we're dealing with at our own single level. And I think that's what I'm struggling with. That's what I continue to struggle with. The money part of it is one thing. Well, I seem to recall last year during the budget, hoping it would be less this year under some of those things, because we're able to source those funds, and it is what it is. But I mean, we're already booking, like with the EMO and some of those things, we're booking out into October to deal with every other week meetings. We start adding in tourism promotion meeting, a couple of meetings on whatever the economic development strategy is, getting those things updates. At some point, how much capacity do we have on our board level to deal with these things? And are we shooting what we have capacity here to deal with and what we need as communities and as a region? I guess that's sort of what I'm trying to wrap my head around. I think I'm worried we're biting off more than what we can deal with. And I'd rather do a few things really well than do a lot of things not that well. And just that we're kind of going, oh, I wish we focused on tourism and recreation and left economic development for next time, or we focus on economic development. But that kind of, I guess, where my mindset is right now is this is a lot. That's a lot of money, whether we're paying for it or it's coming from somewhere else.
Yeah, and I hear what you're saying, the capacity part, and I hear what you're saying. Which is why we need professional when it comes to branding. Like it's nothing you sit around and try to figure out what it is. It's a whole exercise, and that's why you need our people that actually know what they're doing instead of that type of thing. That's why we have to outsource it. But it isn't optional is one of the other issues. So the level of engagement with the board comes to those exercises. I'm very cognizant of, and this is my big struggle has been how much information overwhelming and where point do I pull back? So that's I agree.
And I'm my own worst enemy because I read everything that I know that I can't. And so when I started looking at this, how do I reconcile what's happening here? Take that to my council because I do have a responsibility to go back there and report on it. But if I don't know what's happening, how can I do either thing well? And that's what I'm struggling with. And I guess I didn't understand that. I know we have something under all of those categories, but do we have to do all of the things under all of the categories? I guess it's maybe what I'm coming back to, like, because there's like 17 things that feel under each one of those that we identified in the strategic plan. Do we have to do all of them this year? Can we do a couple this year and do a couple more next?
Well, it's a 5-year plan.
Right.
A lot of them are like the tourism piece is like the phase 1, which is next year. And after that, there's more expansions to come. We want to build a foundation. I was talking to Sherry about this today. We want to build a foundation under the tourism like website and brand so that come 2025, the capability will be there for people to actually book through our website to the actual tour operators within the region. But we can't do that next year. We don't have that capability right now. But so, I mean, it's going to be a growing thing. So yeah, I hear what you're saying. That's what staff.
But you got staff or we got staff? Not all of us have much staff.
I hear that.
No. You worried. I'm a lone ranger.
Your staff.
And that's the.
Yeah,
That's
no,
the
go
point. We gotta make sure whoever we get in those places that we don't need to get into the weeds and build it. Actually, I'd like to have someone that we actually are saying, holy, let's slow this person down somewhere, hold them back, not to have to push.
Yeah.
So that's important.
That'd be Sherry.
Yeah, oh, there you go. Yes.
Slow down.
Yeah, well, that's. I'll know that.
She's a little where.
Darren, you had a comment there. I remember seeing it come up. Yeah, we've all received our invitation to the Chris Austin's meeting at the Algonquin on the 7th of September. And I think I guess we've probably all said that we're going, that we will be there. The part I think that was being discussed around the table was how many people we could take. And so there's the mayor, the CAO, as well as potentially another council member.
Just FYI, I'm not going to be at that meeting. So everybody understands. I already had something booked months ago, so. But I actually have to be, like, this one is really, they're putting on the meeting, they're doing it all, so. That's why I kind of sent out that stuff when I said that meeting invitation that you might want to point out that there are already divisions and I already have mandates within JPS to deal with community safety and policing and stuff, and they're all resourced. There's probably 20 people in each department, each branch of those things, and there is a strategic plan from 11 that probably needs updated.
I did get that copy. I think everybody got their copy of that strategic plan that came up. I did start reading through it and finish it. A lot of boilerplate in there, not much specific. Okay.
So in terms of the budget and meeting again, while we're on the topic, is it possible to meet a different day than Thursday, maybe before the 14th? if you want to come back, or is it?
Or we could jump online and do it, right?
What's the
Yeah.
14th?
Yeah.
The Thursday before the 14th is 7th, isn't it? Which is Chris Austin, which is, yeah.
Right, but I think what we're saying, like a different night of the week, maybe.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
like it could be like, I don't know, your council, like the rest of your,
Are you talking next week?
no, I mean, even if it was the Tuesday before or something like that, so the 12th. Tuesday's a council meeting for any of you guys?
12th of September? That's probably,
An obligation that day.
I mean, it can be a Monday, it can be a.
how's everybody for the 13th?
It's Wednesday.
Yeah. Wednesday, the 13th.
It's not mine.
That works for me.
13th already me.
Might as well stay the night up here.
Are you good out?
Busy bee.
Probably we can place fine in the place.
You gonna stay in the hotel?
There used to be a bar down in Colorado Springs called the Busy Bee. It was actually.
So we all-
Here, wasn't it? Busy bee.
Is there a Busy Bee here?
Greased.
Yes.
You can rent it by the hour, can you? I think it's true. The high school students used to do it, to have
Well, that's on the,
social gatherings.
that's on the 13th.
Yeah,
I'm
13th.
serious, September. Is that here?
We'd probably do it here or on Zoom, your choice.
Yeah, your choice. If
He's
you,
having that.
I'll have the boardroom open for, and if you want to come by, just fine too.
5:30?
Yep, 5:30 on 13th.
Let's shoot for that.
Is there gonna be an email going out or? Yep. Okay.
That gives me some time to. Something more solid.
Any last questions on that one? Comments? New business? Eastern Charlotte office space. We had talked about, there was a building there, over the top of the post office. I think the lease was gonna be around $1,000. Our portion of that was gonna be around $30 or $350, 380, something like for it. So I started digging into that a little bit. So I asked Hollis, what is like we do a lot of the planning now is done online. What percentage of planning is done online? So I'll let Hollis talk with that.
Well, as far as building permit applications go, we get the 2 people a week that walk in the office to fill them out. Sometimes because the time they do that is because they just want to talk to somebody to feel better about it when they're coming with them.
Oh, God.
So that's the line that we get a walk-in. It's like 95% is just an online application for a building permit now. Since we went over to that system.
So I know some talk about going in and leasing this office space. So you guys probably remember most of the conversation. So I'm just gonna leave it open to the board here. What your thoughts on it? Because we did have a motion on the table at one point. We put it over to the meeting to discuss and then see where we want to go with it.
Sort of step off the soccer win that I had. I'm familiar, we got updated on it. But is the expectation that the planners just work out of it, or is there a staff member that leaves this office and works out of it for that day? So it's a day a week, is that correct?
Yeah, just to have somebody to be there for the public to walk in, we like an advertised day, but the space would also be used probably a lot more by our community services. So community development, economic development, recreation tour, and they're working down there, meeting with people down there. That's we'd probably get a lot more use for that.
The funding for the office, or they have.
I think that I said the lot would sooner be of the town and then by the time field or somewhere more accessible, but I think St. George it would be utilized more, especially with the SMRs and stuff coming for Point of Pro. I think they're going to be a little busier
Yeah, kind of a home base for, it'd be a base for building inspectors too, if they're going down to that region to do some inspections, that's the other use of it. The reason that this particular was attractive was because we already have a coat willing to, and there's space for another coat tank. So it's, and I don't have to renovate it. So we can literally just clean it up then. I'm indifferent to this. This is one of those items that staff has no opinion on. If you want it, I'll do it. If you don't, that's fine too.
I'll make a motion to take that office space in St. George. So I need a second. I need a second. I need a second.
We're there. So now we're on discussion.
Are we losing time to do it?
No, we're not on discussion yet. The
I
motion's
just
on
put
the
it
table. We have moved it forward anyway.
Yeah.
It's no harm in putting it out there again. There is a motion on the table, which led forward. Now just discussing whether or not people feel we should be moving forward with this idea or not. And then we'll come to a vote. One of the, sorry, John.
I said, not only, it doesn't just search in Charlotte, the shores, your Island, Andrews, St. Andrews is close to those George as St. Stephen's. So I think the big chunk of the area is or in that area, George is the more central location. Truth be known, Walwick is probably the central location. If we have a chance for an office in St. Philip, grand answer. But say we definitely should be looking at having office space in St.
All right. I don't want to be against it because of where I live. I look at it as, and this sad reality, this is not sad, but this place is already here, right? And we voted to build and rebuild this place. And now we're talking about another place. And again, I don't want to come up with someone, this one's in my area. I wasn't the only one that voted to make this happen, right? But still have trouble having the need for two offices unless, but I'm starting, like when you mentioned that, what you the SMRs and the need, it's still, the case is being built, and that's when I talked last month about having wins out of this, like what's the gains, not just to satisfy a distance thing, because I just don't know how, like I said, I don't want to come off because here, and this is next year in 2 minutes from here, has nothing to do with it. It's having two offices. Like if this wasn't fulfilling our need, then maybe we should be building in the center somewhere with a, at some point. So
Ideally,
I don't know.
right by my house, try not to be facetious, but that actually is the Walwick.
We'll put it on the other side of the road though.
If we were going to build something, we're talking about a $2 to $3 million build, so.
That's
What's your basement like?
Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
You gotta eat.
Yeah.
So does that include heat the 350?
No,
But I don't want, like I said, I don't want to look at it as a distance thing. I want to look at it as do we need another office and what's our needs? I guess that's why. If I heard more of that, I would more understand it. I just know I look after buildings for a living, so I know that it's not just $1,000.
Well, and we didn't think Point LaPro or the SMRs were gonna be a thing because they tried to tell us that they weren't, and it was a big ordeal. We actually had a meeting with government on a Zoom meeting, and kind of there's still, I think, some hard feelings over it, but they thought they were exempt. So it was kind of like they didn't even need to have anybody, but now we're being told that no, you need to have people on site, and you need to have so once that work starts picking up within this year and next year, they're gonna have to be on site quite frequently, I would imagine, from what I understand. Now, I don't
Understand.
Point
planning and.
Yeah, but
was not exempt from building code administration.
Right.
So, but our
but
planning
they-
department's not going to be there. Our planning department is actually not going to be there supervising that.
For building inspectors,
Building inspector.
except for reactors are not. There's a lot of other things that aren't reactors there, and that
Yeah, no, I
all
understand.
fall under us.
And that would still be, we have the right category of
Yeah,
inspector.
because the SMRs are gonna be, they're not considered, the SMRs are considered the reactor type, but all the outbuildings that go with it, they're attached to it, aren't. It's quite a,
So have you built a town hall yet?
no.
So why should we not get into his build? And rent some space and help fund his build? I don't know, I'm just throwing stuff.
Yeah, the other thing I'm
Hey,
thinking,
building one?
We're hoping we've been for 5 spots of land and we're waiting government's really fast, so.
They can wait till they meet legislature, and we're losing that.
Okay, Brad, you
yeah, but just on this, I think I wouldn't do any planning for a town hall around this, because I think if it does carry, it should be a 1-year approval and then looked at to see if was it reused, right? Did it justify the investment? So for me, it's as you said, it's no time savings. For some people, and most people I hear from 98% are doing it online now in our community, but in the same way, I recognize for you, someone wants to go actually talk to someone, that's a hall. That is not convenient at all. And same can be said for you. Minor hockeys just didn't join together because parents didn't want to go to Black's Harbor, right? Like it just, people don't like to travel.
We always want to go to Deer Island. Deer Island, you can.
Deer Island, same things, but
The other piece of it is this, this particular office space, and when you go upstairs, if anybody hasn't been there, you turn left, there's a nice meeting room, it's about the size of this. And then if you turn right, there's like 4 offices and there's a kitchen and a bathroom, and they can be separated, but that meeting room can be used for other community groups that want to meet there. It's something that could be available as an asset. The Chamber of Commerce would probably co-locate with us there. And so they would also use that meeting room. And we work a lot with the Chamber of Commerce, especially as they're building in Eastern Charlotte. So I'm not advocating one way or the other. That's how it is.
so for me, what I'd really like to see is what does it actually cost? What is the budget for that particular item? Like that's what it comes down to. It's not just the rent. There's like, what is that actual number? I vote for something. I want to know what it is, and then where's the revenue coming from to offset that? Obviously, it's for planning services. So our planning services like should cover that, right? Like in theory, when planning services, I get charged for planning services, right? That's how it's covered, right? So where does that come from? My question to offset that.
It would probably be split between corporate and planning, because corporate is down to like our community services. So because they're going to use it probably just as much as any planning service. So that would be, community development, economic development, tourism, recreation, all of that stuff would make use of space, as well as the planners and building inspectors.
Harvey, comments?
I guess,
Oh, sorry.
the only thing I guess I was wondering Hollis's opinion, but he kind of gave it to us anyway that way, but I got no comment on that.
Yeah.
So I guess other than, as I said, is the SMR one pro, probably maybe half of our jurisdiction, our municipality would go that way, because we do have the kiosk in place at our office, which suffices like for Prince of Wales, because that half is closer to St. John by a landslide. But would use the kiosk in the office in Munsforsh. So until we get a centralized building built, I think it would suffice. But I like the idea of trying it for the year and see, and if it's something that's working, then we may expand on that. And if it's not, then by all means, we vote or we do change things around.
Fine.
I like the idea of the 1-year lease if we're going to do it. I like the idea of a cost breakdown to see where it's coming from. Because I think, to me, I'm still back on the budget. Part of that comes back to what do we do with the budget? How many, are we expanding our staff by a significant amount that we're going to require the extra space for? And then it becomes more, then maybe we do need the space. If we're not expanding staff, then maybe the space isn't required, and that becomes a more financial discussion. So I think the two things are connected. I would like to personally see the numbers and then have another conversation when we get to the budget line again.
Yeah, I agree. We've been talking about in the budget that we're going to have 5 additional staff people next year, above and beyond the staff that we have right now in each of the community programs.
Well, it won't be 5, and
It's 4 in the staff writer or in the grant.
there's a grant writer, which is basically a work from home position, most likely. There's a GIS person who works up here.
Mhm.
I did replace the one person that left, and so we have a new employee now. Then we were talking about somebody for recreation, that's the trails recreation coordinator. And then a workforce person. So it's really 2. And when it comes to requiring the space for extra staff, no, I can squeeze them in there.
Okay.
It's not a complete necessity.
I like the idea though of a 1-year trial. If you're gonna do it, we do it for a 1-year trial and then see at the end of 1 year, decide whether or not it was beneficial.
John, any last ones?
No, unless you want me to amend the motion to add the 1 year.
No, I think that'd be all right. Sorry, I'll throw my comments. in. When I look at this, I look at it more of a holistic approach, and I tried to speak to it the last time we met. When we talked the first time about this, and I keep coming back to Denny's comments about balance and fairness and equality, and how do you quantify those? What is the difference that you want to talk about? What is the cost that you want to, how much does it cost each individual community to have another one of these satellite offices in their municipality? So there's that aspect to it. And then you have to look at it from the perspective of, there's a reason the provincial government got rid of this stuff and handed it off to us, these responsibilities. And part of that responsibility that they handed off was, or the issue that they were dealing with was, every community wanted an office in their community so that it would be easier for people to get their whatever stuff done. And the province just realized that they can't afford it. So they loaded that onto us and said, you guys sort of, we can't keep doing this because politically it's dynamite and suicide for us to keep fighting this stuff. So over to you guys. So I kind of look at it and I say, okay, what is fairness? Is it having one location that everybody knows where it is? Everybody knows where they can go. There's an expertise there. I know for my community, I have a space in my building that if a building inspector comes up and he needs to do some work, we just stick him in there and he does his thing. We don't charge, there's no cost. If he wants to have a meeting, we have a meeting room there. They just come in, they use, there's no cost. And I think most municipalities would be willing to do that type of thing. Is if a building inspector came in and somebody want to talk to them, well, there's a space, go over in that corner, nobody will bother you. You've got the Wi-Fi there in the building, and that seems to work for us. So I really question going and taking an extra building on. We can look at the costs and kind of sort that and see what that entails. But I think we'll find that it's going to be thousands of dollars. And how do you quantify that experience for the individual who's going to come in and say, well, I'm glad I was upstairs and maybe not in your village office. I'm not sure that that's the case. So when we come back to this discussion, certainly, I think everything's still on the table. We'll come back and we'll revisit this the next time we come together. Unless you want to vote on it.
There's a motion on the table, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, and we'll have to do something with that motion. Now,
So, yeah, so I just want to touch on, I treat this the same way as when I just heard that there could be 4 to 7 people being hired. Like a grant writer, for example, do we need a grant writer full-time? Why can't we contract that out? Like that's the discussions I want to get into as a board, because I don't want to build the building and then just fill it. But I have the same concern with the employee amount as I do with the building. And just to talk about building, like Brad was alluding to, there is more cost. There's the rent, the lease agreement, there's cleaning, and there's maintaining, and then someone's going to manage it too. Someone has to manage that office site. And and for one day a week, I'm just trying to picture myself being in St. George area, and the week's Tuesday, and it's Wednesday. And I want to talk to someone now. And I know how I am. I'm in the middle of building something. I need answers now because I get other people on me about wanting to hear from me. I'm gonna drive to it or call or go online. Maybe that's something we could do is you kind of talk about our houses, maybe a little kiosk and you can go out and talk to one of these gentlemen or people that are on the other side of that in the office, wherever it may be. But that's the part I struggle with. This is especially when you're talking about staff and buildings. And yeah, again, I'm not speaking because it's here. It doesn't matter to me. Or if it was in St. George, it'd be the same thing. We've already established the place.
Right?
Yeah, so I don't, looking individually, I don't think it necessarily would benefit my municipality, but in the grand scheme of things, putting myself in Eastern Violet and Fundy Shores, this building is on the far end of our area. So I'd be willing to consider it, but before I consider it, I need to see what the actual treatments are estimated for a budget. That's why I'm gonna move to table it until we have more information.
I would second that motion to table.
The only,
He's
if
cooking now.
I may, Mr. Chair, the only comment to gain the true cost, I can tell you, the rent is $1,000 and then we would have co-tenants at $350 a piece probably. But then there's the power bill. So the power, it's electric heat. It's an old building and not very good windows. And so would be plasticking the windows probably kind of thing. So I don't know that I can get you an actual true cost of what.
Even an estimate though, like the cleaning, like what is the obligations associated with it? Cleaning is a great one, that's expensive.
Cleaning we do ourselves internally.
Who does? Oh, that's still cost.
We do it just.
Wow. Well, you guys-
There's a cost, but yeah.
You guys take care of the cleaning in this building?
Good for you.
Yeah, all right. Yeah, who's not that?
I'll pick up my
I
cross.
don't spill now.
But there's the internet, obviously. And internet covers our phone system. In terms of the other thing is that we would have furniture. But I can get the furniture covered by new fund. So there's no actual cost to us from the furniture burden.
Yeah, well, that new fund could go somewhere else. Just never know on something.
Sure.
I don't know what that else is, but
It's a
Opportunity cost.
yeah.
So I don't know how close you want me to get, but if I guess, we're looking at with tenants, probably 15 to 18,000 a year.
You're under.
With tenants.
So
And those aren't guaranteed.
27,000.
Those aren't guaranteed.
One is.
We have some expertise on it. We have some other expertise over here. I think what there's a couple of motions now. So we had a motion to move forward on it, and we had a motion to table.
So the motion to table comes first.
Yeah, so I would take a vote on the motion to table.
Point of order.
Go ahead.
Yeah, wait for a number to come back.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Those cookies out, give each other one of theirs.
I noticed.
No way.
John, what's that? Who made that art there?
You could have worked together.
I'm a bachelor.
But I would have shared.
Everywhere I go.
I feel bad.
Christina's not back till September. This is awesome.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, you know how these any? These are coming home.
I was out, right, but as I told you, I was out on the boat today, my face, I could just feel it, just sunburn.
September's only one.
So just for more discussion, because I like to, I don't stop thinking about these things after the meeting. I like to think about these more, just, you know, to make the right decision. It is a service that we're providing, but we're the only one providing the service, which is another thing, right? They gotta go where they gotta go. But we also want to encourage people to use the service because it's new to them. I agree with that. Also, and you even alluded to more stuff that leans me the other way is because you're right. They're trying to do things together and here we are spreading out as big as the province. I'm not saying this is the right place for it. Maybe it needs to be there. I don't know. But it's not gonna really, it's just, sorry.
It's also one of the tangible services that most residents have at the RFC. I mean, for the most part, they don't know what it is, what it does.
There was another thought just hit me, but it's quickly went right out of my head.
It's anyway, it's about $25,000 a year.
You're probably, because there's
There's
insurance.
phone, there's internet, there's cleaning, there's, well, if you're doing cleaning in house, anyway.
Okay, so we have a motion to table this item. And I was just waiting for you to come back. We're gonna call for a vote as to whether we're gonna table
You
this
can just
item.
holler or what.
Yeah, I know.
Just one comment before you vote on this one. Holding the property now, as I said, just wait until the board makes a decision here, so.
Pressure.
um, Not the end of the world, we can probably find somewhere else, but.
So what's your true feelings on it? What do you think? Is it an
Staff has
asset?
no opinion.
Is it an asset to?
It's
I mean, I'm thinking in the
more
back of my
more
mind,
management for me.
right,
That's okay, though. And the other option is if there was a resident, and somebody could promote, if there was a resident that really did need to see us in person to go to a building for an application, we can drive there. We can do door-to-door service. But we are doing a lot more work in that part of the region, not just building inspection. We're definitely doing a lot more inspection, a lot more dangerous and unsightly, a lot more of that kind of stuff. But we're also, with our other services, we are there quite a bit. And it would be handy to have a place to meet people that is there sometimes. So I'm either way, like I really, honestly, I have no
You can do
opinion.
better than that. No, you can't do better. Come on.
I don't blame them. Seriously, I would, if
No, I just tease.
there's different opinions, I'm staff, I'm gonna play the middle.
Well, I
You
think
you brought up a good point, is so we don't have a planning office in St. Andrews, but when Mr. Gopin comes to meet with someone, he meets in our boardroom of our town hall.
Yeah.
So.
I personally think that's a good way to go at it for now. Like we're still trying to get our feet underneath us as far as costs go and what we're trying to get accomplished. And then all of a sudden we throw all these other little things into the mix. And that's gonna come up again here. But that's my issue that's one of them. Is we've got a lot of stuff on our plate right now, and we're trying to sort out what it is we are and who we are and how we're going to provide those services, and we've got a ton. And I'd rather be cautious and move forward slowly. And I know this building may go the way of the dodo after this meeting, but for me, I'd rather be cautious. I'll get a better feel for a year down the road as to what the actual requirement for this is. I don't have a firm feel for that right now, other than it's over there. And well, it could be over there.
It could be other options too. How much do you charge to use the macadamia place for a day?
Yeah, I don't.
I'm just, I just,
I think it's 500 or 560.
for a day? Oh, okay, I was saying maybe that's a cheaper option where you just rent that room. Try that for a few months, and if people are using it, well, then you know, right?
But then again, you also have to clean yourself,
Oh,
you know,
okay.
like all that.
John might clean it.
So
You don't have nothing.
Again,
And
Kara.
So I know that building because that was used to be one of the things that, no, anyway, no, okay. Can't stop. That's a large floor as well. So is there a smaller office that's more efficient to operate and still house what we need to do? Like, is there, I mean, does anyone look, or is that just this one?
This came up, it was a pretty good deal. I mean, and the thing is, like I said, I don't have to renovate it. We just sweep the dead flies off the floor and kind of turn on power, turn on it. It was a very simple, quick, and for $1,000 a month, I don't know what else you would get.
Okay, so
All right.
it's silence around the table. So we have a motion to table this item until our next meeting. So I guess I'll call for a vote. All those in favor of tabling it, signify by saying aye.
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 I'm an aye. Since I like to vote.
Maybe like that.
Don't forget, there's two Johns, two Allens.
Or Harvey.
Yeah. All those opposed to table? Okay, so we have a vote 5-3. And
4.
I voted.
No, but there's 4.
There's only 3 that
Two.
voted against.
No, there's 5 in favor.
Oh, he's counting as the 2 votes.
Yeah. 2, 3,
That's
4.
not a way to go.
Sure.
Yeah.
Oh.
Unless it works in our favor.
Yeah. Doesn't matter.
So we voted to table this item till a later date. What would that later date be? I know we wanted some more from the figures with one.
Yeah, so I'd like to see Bonnie's questions get answered.
Yeah.
Like energy costs, everything. And how many days a week it's gonna be open? Is it, you just committed to one or? You know, so, yeah.
And is there other options like in McAdam, as I said, we provide space when anybody needs to have a discussion. Is there no other space for the other municipalities to do the same, or is that onerous? Or I'd really like to know how much demand there is. I don't know how to quantify. All I know is 95% of the people who do their building inspection or whatever are doing it online, or the planning is being done online. And the building inspectors, they go anyway, they're gonna be out there. So if anybody has any questions, certainly in my location, they come and they ask their questions, and the building inspector goes talk to them. So with that, I guess we'll see that one on the next meeting. Thank you very much. The next
Need to be more interesting.
The next item, funding for regional organizations. And I'm going to leave that with you, Hollis. Again.
This is really just about if we are going to contemplate giving funding to organizations that apply that don't fit neatly into any of the other services that we have. Example being Charlotte County Archives. We need a policy that says we're going to do that, and we need a consistent policy and consistent application process for both of those, so that they're fair. Up till now, the policy has been a flat no. And if it continues to be a flat no, that's fine too. But we need to know that at this point. Are we going to consider requests from regional organizations, and they have to prove that they're regional, that there's criteria that they're going to have to meet in order to be approved? And if we are, then let's put a consistent policy and process in place.
Okay. I guess comments around the table. Brent.
I actually like this idea, just the one that jumps out to me is Charlotte County Ground Search and Rescue, for example, like that's an organization. And I'm all the time at a municipal level seeing two things. I'm seeing the requests starting to come into you, but I'm also seeing them in the same sense, send them into the municipality. So it's gonna be one or the other, because either way we're paying for it. And there is a lot of regional organizations, probably in every one of our communities, that our municipality on our own is paying for. It should be, if it's a true regional service or organization, then the region should share it. But with that being said, the Charlotte County Ground Search and Rescue go hook to where you are.
Yeah, actually.
They do? Good. So
That's
that
a question, because I wasn't sure, because I served on it many, many years ago, and it was just Charlotte County down, and we were, and the other part was covered by River Valley. So, but they're telling me now that it's all,
I think didn't Rhonda say, Rachel say
Right.
online?
so a public
Is that right?
safety, Ronnie told me.
The city line, isn't it?
Yeah, so we're covered by,
Good, because the criteria I'm looking for is that it does cover every member, because if you bring one forward that covers St. John area and just you, we're gonna turn it down, so why should you be approving one that just goes up to, you know what I mean? Just because it's a wider area, it's gotta cover the islands, you know what I mean? Like, it's gotta, so like personally, if that was the case, to have a little pot of money where they come to our municipality, say, no, you go to the RC, we allocate dollars and we'll make a decision as a region. That makes a lot of sense to me than us just making it on our own, or worse, getting double dipped, and I see that all the time.
but even Charlotte County Archives, and I've had that conversation with them, is it didn't really cover us because they thought Charlotte County started in Beaver Harbor down. So, but he was more than well, they weren't gonna change their name, but they were more than willing to look at board seats and starting to archive some of our information up there to put in, so I was more than fair.
Yeah, and like even synergies are willing to encompass all our group, and I know that that's not necessarily it, but say they're looking for $10,000 for a project and it's benefiting us all, I don't mind that regional fund for these purposes.
So where does that fund come from though?
Cooperative regional fund, so you guys.
We'll pay for it.
We all pay.
For me, that would be the stipulation, is it is very hard to find a true regional organization that does cover the islands, particularly Graham. Charlotte County Search and Rescue does, but I'd be hard pressed to count on the rest of the fingers on my hand, other ones that do.
But I think, and I guess with Charlotte County Archives, I think if you could stipulate what you want, I guess, to them, then that might open it up, because he was more than once, I said, well, you know, I'd like to have our
They-
stuff archived or different things.
They probably
or
have the
something.
balance anyway, I'm pretty sure they do stuff on Camp Bowen, right?
We have our own archives in Graham.
Hmm.
And they said they would work with them, which is fine. And I think if they apply, we can talk about it at that point.
Yeah.
But I think that that's got to be one of the criteria, is it has to cover the bulk of the region and regional.
Can it kind of join forces with it, merge with Charlotte County?
That's kind of what we talked about that day, and I haven't talked to anybody at home about it, so I,
Because they may have some benefit, like more up to date, whatever technology to help you out and benefit you, like you were just saying. But that's just one of the community grants. There's many, right?
I've had 3 requests. So I've got Charlotte County Archives, I've got Charlotte County Grand Search and Rescue is looking for some money, and Sunbury Shores is the other organization that's approached us.
But what's the big number I heard that we want to put in this budget line? What was that, 80,000 you said?
No, it's more than that. I mean, Charlotte County Archives is looking for 50.
Oh, that's right.
So when
Jesus, that's right.
you come to us for our share of the funding though, is it based on population or has that?
Yep, had 50% population, 50% tax base.
That's the only thing I worry about, because I don't wanna sound broke, but like, we don't have a lot of spare money kicking around, so.
So that's gonna increase his cost to the RSC, right?
Yep.
Or all of us, and same, that's all proportional.
But that being said,
Good for
some
him.
of the stuff on the board there went down, so it might not be too horrible anyway, but I just, I'll be that way every time, but. It is what it is. If I had extra money, I'd keep Ken on myself without begging for money to keep, you know what I mean, like that's like the
No,
idea.
I get it.
Sorry, Bonnie. go ahead.
there's also part of me that thinks there is an advantage to waiting a year till we get this first year with these different categories under our belt. See how we're going to do that part of the budget before we add on one more thing we're trying to do. Goes back to the capacity discussion earlier. Sorry.
No, that's valid. Anybody else?
Yeah, just,
Sorry, Al. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I mean, also keep in mind, some of the stuff you see coming to the RSC might be the reason municipalities just go see them, get away from us. And it could be that too. Don't.
I do that all the time.
Yeah, no, it's over that. But I do want to say, I think it's an important service that we need to help look after. Whether we're all going to agree on 50,000, I don't know that, but I think we need to help, whether it's through here or we all chip in from our own pockets, so to speak, our own budgets.
Is it given the 50,000 though, is that something that would be what the board decides, right? Doesn't mean they're gonna get 50,000.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah, correct.
But they're asking for 50.
yeah, if it's what we just, okay.
Wouldn't that be something to add on to the application too, is if they've asked for money from any other resource?
I think what we have to do first is what Hollis said, we have to adopt a policy. And we have actually had the policy given to us. And I think that policy should be, we could do that tonight, is pass that policy. And then we can move forward.
Yeah, give us a minute.
They will let people apply. We'll put money in the budget or not, whatever we want to do, but at least have a policy in place.
So all these relations are like they operate year after year, so it makes sense to have an application period, because you've got 3, but there could be, I don't even know the transition house here, how wide's that area that covers, for example? I don't know, but like, there's,
Once you open this door,
the other thing too, is we're all supposed to be working together, and there's more organizations that might be, I'll use Graham and because you spoke, might be saying, okay, Graham and Ann's part of what we do now, so it provides a new service that you might not have had at a lot lower cost than you're gonna try to do it on your own. So that, yeah, as far as, no disrespect to them, but the 50,000 there's a lot of conversation that I have to talk for that much money. I'm personally thinking in year 1, you start with a small budget, you give little amounts to start getting used to working together, and then if we really start getting some regional wins across all of us, and that organization did so much for me, all right, 50,000 might not be out of the question, but they would have to prove themselves to every one of you, right? So, or at least the majority of us.
I'll make a motion that we adopt the policy that was presented to us by Hollis.
Okay, so we got a motion on the floor. I'm
doing it again.
I haven't said anything yet, so now I've been kind of waiting to see what the table was gonna say. You got something else, Al?
well, just, it's, the other thing you gotta keep in mind when you're funding any organization, you have a right to understand what their books are, how their books are, you know, to prove to us you do need this much money and why. And if, you know, someone come in and gave them a big grant and, you know, ours could go down, you know, we have to have, you know, they have to prove they need it, I guess. It's not just a matter of saying, I need 50,000, get 50, and away we go. But anyway.
I think I've had a quick glance at this, and there's some issues there that I see. And it is, some of them are, for example, if an organization, a not-for-profit organization came and said they wanted a certain sum of money, and they would then expect that sum of money every year, you really can't do that. You're looking for funding for that year. You can't continue to fund an organization, in my estimation, year after year after year, to the detriment of other organizations that might be coming in with just as good ideas or just the requirements. I'm kind of like Bonnie. I'm a little low. I love the idea of taking a further look at it. But I also like what Al said. Like, for me, after I came away from the Charlotte County Archives meeting with them, I could see value in what they're doing there. And so I know that on $50,000, my share at the village would probably be a couple $1,000. Well, when they come to me and they say, I want somebody to go and represent the community, so I'll send, I think Taylor Deland is going to be that individual. Taylor, if you're listening, sorry. But I'm going to probably put Taylor Deland in that position. And when he goes to that first meeting, he can go there and say, I come, you know, bearing gifts of this amount of money, which would have been my share anyway. So I'd like to see how that organization functions first and see how that's going to integrate with my community. I'd like to see how that's going to integrate with the rest of the communities within the region. And I think it can be done, but I'm just loath to take on another requirement at a regional level. I don't mind doing it at the community level because I can see it. But at the regional level, there's a Pandora's box waiting for us there. That if we go out and we say, okay, there's this amount of money that's going to be available every year, well, then there's an administrative tail that's going to come along with that, because you're going to have all these applications come in. Then you're going to have, and they're going to have to be timed. That states in here, it's going to have to be by a certain period. And I know in other organizations that give grants out, They do have deadlines. They have very strict guidelines as to what the money can be spent on, how much per year can be spent. If we had $80,000, for example, well, you could start with that, but then you might realize that the need is much higher than that. And then how do you incorporate all those different organizations into that $80,000? And so maybe one way of doing that would be, and it's not stated in it, but you can only have one grant every 5 years. Maybe you limit the amount of money that can go out to any one organization over some time frame. Maybe that's one way of making sure that every organization that comes to you and looking for funding can be dealt with within our limited capacity. So there's a lot of other things in this that I would like to, I think, great start, Alice. I'm not bad, nothing, the work that you've done. But
It was intended to be a starting point, and that's what it was.
Exactly. And I think there's maneuver room there to further explain if we want to go that direction. And then next year, perhaps, put some money in the pot, see what kind of a response we get, and then see how we, as you say, I think Brad brought it up, baby steps. We take it in baby steps. So I know,
So I know when we were on, I'll use the people that are looking for the money right now and how they said it's $2 a head. That's their math. It's not really $2 a head in our world. It's, it's based on a lot of things, actually. What my cost is, the RSC is saying it like I could be paying, my municipality could be paying $20,000 of that.
Yeah.
Actually, probably are.
I think that's probably what it would be.
Yeah.
On that order.
Yeah. So, but again, it's based on a lot of things. So that's a lot for my municipality to pay to
It's,
a service like that, right?
my share would be a lot to pay for this that is looking to expand into my community
Mhm.
without having that proven background. And I think that's, you've actually taught me out of my opinion, so there you go. I am really, the more you talk, the more I'm struggling with from it. And that level of funding that we would be required from here is more than we give to a lot of local organizations from our municipality. So I struggle with why we'd be giving more money to a regional organization that's doing less in our community than we would give to a local organization in our community that's doing the same things. Did that make sense the way I said
Yeah,
that?
but just on that comment there, that's their ask, what we give, that's up to us.
Yeah,
So we could give $1,000, you know what I
Right.
mean, like as a group. The one that jumps up to me, and I know the archives is probably, but like CHGO, I don't know if they're probably in yours, but they cover so many different council meetings right now. They're active in the Stein Lake Fire, which is Boca, they're active in every area. And again, maybe not in yours. I bet you they would agree to as part of,
We got.
but here's an incentive for them to do it, right?
We can let her up full cover. She's good.
Yeah, but
I
you
know,
know, those are the type of organization I'm thinking of when I think of this fund. They need a new camera. We have a fund they can apply for it. But again, I understand what you're saying. It's hard enough to have your taxes when you do them every year and a bigger chunk keeps coming
Yeah.
outside.
Yeah.
And it's so early at this concept that there isn't enough wins to really associate with increasing it like we talked about. So this is just another thing that goes to the REIT. Like I get that.
and I truly believe that a lot of these organizations need to be funded. But is that the function of our organization to do that right now? Maybe next year. But
Is there a way that this grant writer can get some grants to put it on the pot for this?
that was the other thing that,
Then people feel different about it, right? Like, I agree, like, I thought, when I said that about my share, yeah, a couple $1,000 is a lot of money at times, but even when you said, like you said, $20,000, that's a lot, even St. Stephen, really, and they give a big tax base, but there's always something going on here that you need money for, right? In every municipality.
I think and you mentioned it, there was the grant writer, and the grant writer is going to play a significant role here. So what I would like to, because part of that grant writer's wages is being paid for the community committee. And so part of the effort is to go into these types of organizations within our communities to try and help them raise funds. So for example, so search and rescue needs some extra funding. Well, maybe there's a fund out there that you aren't aware of, or I'm not aware of. The grant writer will be able to find that funding and be able to get some funding for these folks, or for the Charlotte County Archives group, or I'm not familiar with the other group. But I think if we offered that opportunity for this year to get that started, that might be of greater assistance, actually having $5,000 or $10,000 passed from us to them. It might be more beneficial to have somebody knowledgeable about the grants that are available. They might get hundreds of thousands of dollars from a grant. Whereas if they just left it with us, they might get a couple thousand. So that's the other part of this, I guess, is we try that maybe first. And because we are then putting $40,000 into the grant writer, which in part is going out to help our communities raise funds. So maybe that's how we couch it in those terms. And then we try that for a year, and if the grant writer works out well, then we can do it that way. Put it out to the table.
I like that idea.
Yeah, the other thing, when I just started thinking this when I even mentioned, when I said it out loud, how much my municipality paying. Here I am sitting here speaking for my whole council, and I can literally agree to spending $20,000 in my budget. Without it, blinking an eye, so I don't like that either.
That's a good idea. That's a good
But
conversation.
yeah, you can, I guess from the perspective of you can move that you're gonna use that money to spend. But when this goes back to your council has to approve the budget. So if they see that there's this grant or this fund that's going out, they'll question that. And then you'll give your reasons as to why you okayed it, but they may overturn that decision and say, no, I don't like that.
So then
Eventually.
then it's gonna come back here. If that was to happen, then they come back here and we're at the starting board.
Well, no,
I only have, yeah.
no, like really, you're the guy making the decision. And that council, when they look at you, you gotta be able to.
I'm not so worried about it, but I like somebody like him. I got no way.
Brad, you have
Well,
something.
just for me, ideally, it's wrapped up in the budget, and then I take that budget to council, and then I get consensus on what they're okay with and what they're not, and then I bring that back to the state.
Yeah.
So ideally, we're tabling the office space of the post office in St. George is, even if we did put it in, like, that might get rejected in our budget, right? So.
Yeah. There's potential for that.
There's a motion.
So we have a motion on the table to, that was to move forward with this and set up an $80,000 fund.
Motion was to
Motion was to adopt the policy.
Adopt the policy.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry. There was so much discussion I forgot. So we do have that. Can you read that to me, what that motion was?
The motion is to adopt the policy that Hollis has drafted.
Okay.
If we adopt the policy, are we adopting the policy as is, or we're gonna change it after we don't know this too?
No, I think if we were to adopt it, we would have to adopt it with the idea that it can be, I think if you adopt it, it's going to be looked at for changes to enhance it, because it really is just a starting point.
Right.
So we adopt it from the perspective of, we'll take a look at the document, see what else we can add to it with no strings attached money wise at this point. And then we can sort that out later. It's a good approach because we tackle it piece by piece, right?
Just trying to get forward.
Yeah, even if we can develop some sort of a policy that we can all agree to, and then later on, we can determine on whether or not funding would be applied to it. So by having said that, the funding would probably apply to this until next year's budget, not 24, but 25's budget anyway. because you'd never get it done.
One clarification on the motion, if we adopt the policy, are we adopting this policy, not adopting the policy to work on as draft?
That's my question as well.
Good point. Do you want to rephrase that motion, John?
I'll make a motion that we adopt the policy. No, I'm kidding. I don't know.
Can we make the motion that we, the motion will be to consider
A policy,
the policy on Crest for regional initiatives.
Yeah. not particularly this one, but any policy.
And that way, we're not really agreeing that we're gonna take requests. We're not agreeing to the fact that we're gonna do it down the road. But we certainly need, before we make any decision on it, we need to know what the policy would look like. We can't just agree to something without knowing how that policy will be affected.
So is this, are you gonna make an amendment to it, or how do you want to handle that? You send your motion, or you make a new one?
Yeah, why don't I do that? I'll rescind the original motion. Seconder had to agree to that.
Point right at you, yeah.
I knew he was thinking to that. We had a meeting before we came in. It's all going to hell.
So we're rescinded the motion.
You find it in that file?
I found, yeah, I got it.
So I'll make a
Last
motion.
month- last month's meeting. Yeah, that's the policy that.
So the motion is that we
Continue to explore.
or having what do we call this? A policy
Right.
for funding requests.
I think that's good. Danny, are you willing to second that still?
Can you read that back to me? Exactly.
Thank you. We keep going. I'm not gonna give you this
Motion
now.
to consider to explore policy for regional funding requests.
There you go.
Yeah. So we'll apply, what that really means is that we will be applying assets to defining that policy is gonna be. Okay, all those in favor of that motion?
For what, say that once again, sorry, because I still. Oh, no, sorry.
To explore policy for funding.
I'll just still continue exploring, but not voting for that policy right now.
Yeah, all we're voting on is to continue looking at
Okay,
a policy, defining a policy for future potential.
because I see a few things missing there.
So you even pay higher portion.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's the one.
Okay, we'll wait for the vote. All those in favor of the
Well,
motion,
I
say
forgot.
by saying aye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for keeping track of that. That's a good job.
Oh, there's no voters up there?
No, no, we're almost at the table.
Yeah, Darren went to sleep, I think.
Thank you. And I appreciate all the comments on those. And those organizations, again, with the Charlotte County Archives, we've agreed to send somebody in to try and make it a regional, and we will come with a little bit of cash when we come. So it's a good start on how to try and bring regional assets to better value. Committee and staff report, no, sorry, local economic development meeting, heard that one out. That one's gonna be on the 13th of September.
No, that's our budget meeting. There was a discussion around having a meeting around local economic development.
Oh, yes, that's right. And that was on, I thought that was gonna be the 13th of September.
That's our
Budget meeting.
budget.
Last time, I didn't.
Okay, I'm getting the two.
Well, there's a
straight now.
synergy. Was it down with synergy? Is that? what-
Yeah.
I should have that written down.
It's ridiculous.
Okay.
I guess.
So-
meetings in-
The other one, the local economic development meeting, yeah, they're not. Synergy had been speaking to a number of municipalities as to whether they want those municipalities to employ their services for economic development. A number of communities have stated that there is an interest in doing that. And the linkage between our municipal level economic development and the regional economic development portion is missing. And we need to have some way of linking the two so that they're working in harmony. So that's kind of what we wanted to try and do, is have that meeting to discuss those items. And so we were looking for a date.
So what are they available?
Before November for me. After November, I'm not quite as.
There's a bunch of
I
meetings.
think ideally, I'd like to have it before we do the final budget discussion on the 14th, if that's possible, just because if there is linkages,
Mhm.
overlap, if there's ways to make economies on either side, I think it makes to do that before we do a budget approval.
I don't think it would affect our budget at all. They're two different things.
Do we know they have in fact secured their funding for this year?
I don't.
Because that's where it ties into us.
Yeah. I think between now and the 14th, that if there's some way we could do it, I just think it would be, I'd be more comfortable having that conversation beforehand.
We have a 3-minute meeting before our budget conversation on the 13th, knowing it's gonna be a longer meeting, because we've got a lot of meetings. Between now and then. I'd rather just have a long one and then keep traveling back and forth.
Can you do it in 30 minutes?
Oh,
An
man.
hour, I don't know. A few items on the
Those
list.
are just copies of the drafts that they.
If we,
I doubt we can, because if you get synergy, which is what. You don't want to. Guaranteed.
We had them down home for 30 minutes, with about 2 hours.
so how long do you think the budget meeting will take?
An hour.
And though the synergy,
An hour of going through, because Mark Ford will be here, and we'll present the whole thing, right?
they might as well say hours.
Mhm.
That's gonna take 2 hours. So I guess, talking about synergy, is what you're thinking is the RC is gonna spend some money on municipal and economic development? Is that what you're getting at?
I guess since that's one that originally packed up your comment, I guess. Maybe, I'd hate to see synergy fold. Like, if it's just a bridge for 1 year or something, then I think we should have that conversation, because that's a body that's talking about acting regionally for us at the grassroots level. And I'm not 100% convinced, and no disrespect to the RSC, I'm not 100% convinced that the everyday business, they're gonna necessarily feel it right away with what we're trying to do, because they have so many big things that they have to do to get out of the wheelhouse, and to lose them as a casualty of what we're going through right now, I think that would be a big mess for the region, even though they have not acted in my community yet. They've been mainly Eastern Charlotte, and
Absolutely.
that would be a really big loss for the region for like that to fold. And it could happen if they don't have fun.
Has Petal been approached for funding this one?
I can't speak to
You can't. no.
what has or has not happened. I know that the MLA down there had quite active in seeking funding. I know that she's been quite involved with that.
Yeah.
But I don't know what status is. I don't know.
On the 13th, our meeting would normally start at 5:30 for that economic meeting, the budget meeting, sorry. Would that, if we pulled that out to say 7, I'm gonna impact you here on Ferries.
I have to be in Moncton for Thursday morning, so I'm probably gonna do Zoom from there anyway.
Okay,
Sure.
so you're gonna be doing Zoom on both those meetings.
Yeah.
Harvard,
Doesn't matter to me,
No problem.
I can, in September, I can be here any time of the day.
No, I'm not sure.
So could we-
7th? You said 7th, did you?
no, on the 13th, what I was thinking was,
Okay.
if we did the municipal vice regional center discussion, say at 5:30, we top that off at 7, and then we go into our budget meeting at 7 o'clock. That's gonna put us at around 9 to finish.
Does it affect anybody to start at 4:30 or is that? Like I mean, don't matter to me, I'm not really, I can do anything this time, I'm with these guys.
Work they do, I guess.
I can start earlier.
I can't. 5:30 is the earliest.
The other thing is we could just cap the first part of it in an hour.
Semi.
And the budget, that isn't the meeting where we're gonna vote to put the budget up for review. That happens the day after at our regular board meeting, right?
Right.
So the budget is really just a preview of where we are in case we had to make any last minute changes
Right.
the next day. So we can probably do that one in an hour. As long as I'm not interrupted.
Because on the 14th, we can have more discussion on the 14th. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So at 5:30, then we start the meeting with Synergy Municipal Economic Development and Regional Economic Development. We'll cap that off after an hour and a half. And then we'll sit down and do,
I would say an hour is probably.
is an hour gonna be enough for that meeting? I'd rather go,
Let's call it an hour and allow it to go to an hour and a half.
I think that would be,
I think if you call it an hour and a half, it'll end up being 2.
okay, let's call it an hour, we'll go for an hour and a half. But we don't want to go beyond 7 o'clock for the start of the second portion.
Right.
And that will give us 8 to 8:30.
Can I just add on to that? Like maybe someone on the table needs it, but I don't need a review of what they've done. What I want to talk about is how they move ahead, right? If that makes any sense, because that'll tie up 30 minutes and they review all the things they've had in Eastern Shore. If someone needs it, great, but we could move it ahead by talking about, like, almost give them a heads up as knowing what the RC is doing. How do you see yourself going forward? And how are you sustainable from a funding model? Those are the types of conversations I'd like to have.
Yeah.
And of course, are they willing to sign up to look after all of us, right? Like that's, otherwise that's not a conversation. If they're not looking to look after all of us, it's not even a conversation at this table.
Well, the only thing is that there is a future St. Stephen too. Are they part of this meeting?
Oh, I would say yes. You guys need to be here.
Can't leave them out.
They want to be in here, yeah.
So let's now that you brought that up, it's on my mind a little bit. Like St. Stephen is already paying for 130,000 a year for economic development. And then if we decide to do synergy, I'm paying a piece of that as well.
Well,
And I guess what are they selling me?
well, the other.
Well, I get explained over the meeting.
So here's my problem. I'm tied to how I collect funding on a regional basis. So that's an issue. We can still have this meeting, we can still talk to them about it. But it doesn't necessarily have to be a regional service commission that provides funding. So if they're providing service to Eastern Shore, if they're providing service to St. Andrews, if they're providing service to Fundy Shores, they can bill directly. Instead, because if they bill through us, not only do I have to bill a certain way and I have to regionally, there's also that the admin part of that has to come in. Like there's no point us taking a piece out of that money or anything like that. It's just, I don't see that. I see that as way money. But I think that and the other part of this is that the service that they offer is going to be different for each municipality. So that's something else to take into account here too. Like the service they're going to offer to Fundy Shores, because they have a different amount of infrastructure, they have a bunch of stuff going on, but they have a large tax base. See, I have to bill according to tax base needs. Whereas St. Andrews has a different things going on. So it might make more sense for them to tailor the service to the local government that they are serving. That's just my opinion on that. And that way you are already getting service. You wouldn't even have to be part of it. Just my opinion.
That's the type of conversation we should have.
But it's good that can happen here so that everybody understands what's happening. But I think the better deal for local governments is for them to actually bill individually for the service that they're actually getting. Rather than, because I have to bill according to tax base and split it up that way, and I have to do it regionally. I'm just tied that way in legislation. And I don't know that that's a fair way of doing it.
Can you do it the same way you do in the planning service though? If you're not doing it for one municipality, you just bill the municipality.
No, planning service is got a different set of rules.
Okay.
Well, maybe by the 13th, they'll have an answer too. Pedal might be coming through for it.
Oh, that's true.
That would be ideal, but still have the meeting to talk about how we can work
And-
together.
absolutely.
Because someday it's gonna be like, going,
Yeah.
There's a, yeah. I like the idea of doing that, having a meeting. We'll host it here, under our auspices, and so,
Why don't we do it in? um,
You forgot who I am.
Eastern Charlotte, have you got room to?
I don't know. I don't control the planogram there, so I have to check with my staff. I have people do that.
But we certainly, I certainly don't mind. that. Extra distance.
we're working in a new building.
The other thing that, the other thing I would like to bring up in this discussion is, I know I saw, and if they're listening, I know I saw a manpower chart as to how many people they were hiring, how much it was gonna cost. And I did talk to them about saying, you need to whittle that down. You need to be able to prove yourself, on the first year or two going around. So don't bloat the manpower, because that'll hurt you in the grand scheme of things. Prove yourself first, then you can grow. So there's some number of things there, but I'd love to sit down and try and arrange something. And I would really like to see St. Stephen come in as well. And if we can roll future St. Stephen into this somehow, that would work well. The other thing that you need to be aware of is that when you go into this, you may have a company come to them and they'll say, okay, which community should I go to? And so they're going to be sitting there and saying, well, how are they going to do that? That's something that needs to be discussed. I don't want to see communities infighting. I can out incentivize you in order to get that company to come into my area. So that's something that's been in the back of my mind as well on all this. So yeah, but I look forward to the discussion, and certainly my community is interested in getting involved in this with Synergy. I've already had some dealings with them that's worked out well for us, and so I think it's a discussion well worth having, as I believe you guys all do too. So we'll plan on that. We'll work at who's going to get a hold of them to let them know. Tell us you're going to do that. So that'll start at 30. The second meeting will start at 7.
Just call my office.
And then it can be done either in place whenever we find out John's got a location for us, or via Zoom.
So that's Synergy and Future St. Stephen.
I would like to see, would you like to see them there?
No, just Charlene.
Just Charlotte.
I'd like to see how they might see themselves fitting into a larger,
Just,
but I know your bylaws are associated with this as well, right? So it would have to be an opening discussion in that conversation.
just relevant to the conversation, it's probably teaching us on YouTube, because I just got a text saying there is no funding for Synergy
Good.
from someone who would know.
Okay. So, yeah,
They must be.
that's good.
Address something.
There it is. I get message too. Not about
That's
that.
why I'm just camera.
Okay, so we'll get a chance to meet on that one. Next item would be the committee and staff reports. And I guess that's you again, Hollis.
So first one up is the C report. You'll notice I don't use a lot of words in my report. There's a lot of graphs, but
Oh, we like pictures.
it just shows that first page is about the,
Are we down about this?
There's not enough left.
Sorry, Hollis.
that's all right. The first page is about our waste total, but here we are. We are tracking lower, obviously. US waste is lower than it used to be. But also our residential waste is lower than what it used to be too. So I asked around, the province, the other regions, I said, are you seeing more amounts of garbage from residential? And they all said, yeah. We can't put our finger on why. The only thing I can figure is stuff costs so much that people are buying less stuff with packaging. I don't know that for a fact. This is just my hypothesis. It's just, I don't know, but everybody's less residential garbage. Not like a huge amount, but you can notice it. But it's just an interesting.
Well, so but when you're saying less bag, you're considering the recycling in this number as well?
This is total tonnage, but what I'm looking at there is just residential garbage, so not recycling.
So, I mean, maybe people are recycling better to make.
No, they're not.
Okay, I just never know.
Because I got those numbers too.
Oh, okay, well, that's why, okay.
That's why I was like, but nope.
Would it be that during COVID, a lot of people were buying stuff? And after COVID ended, they stopped buying stuff and they started buying experience. So maybe that plays into it a little bit as well.
Vacations,
I'm not sure.
vacations in the summer, probably slack up on.
Yeah, but it's year to date. But when I look at year to date, it's lower.
I just know the week that have been closed, like PEI, we had one bag of garbage, usually we have 2 cans full. I don't know if they make all the garbage or not, but it just seemed like that they did, but.
Yeah, no, it's overall, like when you compare it year to year.
Interest rates to cost of living is higher, people start buying as much stuff.
Yeah, that's gotta be, that's gotta be, it. If it's reasonable, like if it's the whole province or whatever, it's gotta be it.
Yeah, it's kind of the whole province, so it's just an interesting observation.
Well, you certainly don't put as much in the car. Yeah,
Just means I'm billing you guys less.
Well, one thing I know, you probably think it's silly, but they don't shopping bags, you don't get them anymore. So that's quite a little bit of garbage when you add that up for about a year, right? I mean, that's something.
Yeah, the straws, must be the straws.
And the straw.
Or when I go to the store, I'm trying to hold everything because I got no bag. If I had a bag, I might have bought more.
Yeah.
Oh, I haven't. I never had them when I go to the store. I was taking my way home from work. Yeah,
We're all saying,
I can carry a lot, but
Yeah. Anyway.
yeah, so there's something going on here.
So, next page was our planning, so it's just a breakdown of the planning, the building inspections we're getting, the type of applications we're getting. It has not slowed down, not even a little bit. I keep saying this every year, that this is a record year, people can't be building anymore, but they haven't stopped.
Are you sharing this on the screen? Can you?
I can't.
I mean, I think we probably should.
Sharon and Daryl might want to see some of that.
Well, they could see it on whoever's watching.
Yeah. Good point.
CAO sent
Mhm.
report, that's your report, I think they sent it. so
Yeah.
Greater Kent.
Yeah, but anyone could be on there watching, they could see the graphs. I don't know. If it's easy, you should stick that there. There it is. Yeah.
The waste. So we're talking about planning files. So, yeah, like I said, it's another banner year for building inspection. And we're breaking it down more into, because we got better reporting because of our new system, I pull this kind of reporting anytime now. Into development and signs and variances and that kind of stuff. And then the breakdown of by community of straight up applications. I don't know if that's actually useful information to anybody, but it's interesting to see where they're going. They're pretty even split across the top and then onward. Also now including, because we've identified information as a priority for service commissioner and talking to people. So I'm now including all of the statistics that I get from our website, the last 30 days traffic on our website. It's not insignificant, 2,900 pages. over the last 30 days. It's and where it comes from, and I can break this down into even what browser they're using, if they're using the phone, how big their screen is. Not that that's necessarily useful, it's more of interest. Where they're coming from is of course good, and obviously they're mostly Canadian. But it's the part that it's about 4% is search engine traffic, and then 38% is direct traffic that they're typing it in. So that part is interesting as well. And then referring websites. So I've referred on the front page of our new website is links to all of the local governments in the region. And I think there's a lot of those back in different places. Anyway, this is something I'm going to be reporting on going forward. And this becomes particularly important as we get into tourism promotion. Then we're going to be able to see exactly where it's coming from and break it down even more.
Google Analytics.
Nope, I use a stack counter for this.
It's called Stack Count.
Yeah. Include some news from
The whole thing, we lost a couple of votes there.
from recreation.
Yeah.
You can read through that. We've been involved with more of the Coastal Link Trail. If any of you have driven from St. John and you see the armor stone and stuff along the lake, that's us. That's the Coastal Link Trail project. That's money that we funneled. We're kind of overseeing that project to make sure that happens. That's the Spruce Lake part of that.
New guardrails I see yesterday when I drove by. Putting guardrails there too?
Yeah.
On the trail, that's a pretty good idea.
Well, we didn't have choice.
No, but I mean, it's pretty, no,
Yeah.
I thought it looked nice and
So tourism, as you know, we've been building, Sherry called it building the foundation for all of our tourism work. So that's all of our stats and our visitor gathering and annex there. And then the other big news in tourism is the talks that we've been in with CCRTA. So there's going to be a merger there of assets and whatnot, and a transfer of some funding and some organizational change. And that's happened. It hasn't been hostile. It's been a good working relationship with them as we move forward. We're not the enemy to anybody, right? So there's an economic development update. So just some updates on some of the work that's been happening, the supporting of some businesses. There is a couple of lunch and learns from HR development side, and that's through some of the companies that group the region. HR in the work, or human rights in the workplace is the October one. If anybody is interested in these events, get hold of me and or Charlene. So there's a regional business summit coming up here, and so they started planning for that. There's a Youth Opportunities Expo for October 10th in St. Andrews. And Multicultural Association is our partner there. This is not just a job fair. So this is, they're going to have people there from mental health, talking about a variety of things, and it's meant for youth. And then there's also going to be employers, but there's going to be schools. I was talking with her today, and one of the folks is there is that they want to get away from every kid being told they need a university education. It isn't necessarily the case. So they want to concentrate on a much more diverse kind of opportunity. Should be a good event. Yeah, and so our strategy has started with Stiletto. If anybody is not familiar with them, it's David. No, name's not different than economist. No.
That's
Environmentalist.
environmentalist.
No, he's an economist that you've all heard of. Anyway, so that's his agency.
He presented at UMNB actually, didn't
Mhm.
he? I think that day he presented at UMNB, and I can't think of his last name.
Anyway, fairly famous guy, been in a lot of publications, but anyway, this is. Yeah, so there's quite a bit of work happening in the economic development field. And that's all I had for my report, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. Okay, public safety committee report.
So, we had our public safety committee meeting. Went quite well, actually. Took a while for people to get talking. Once we started talking, there was lots to talk about. Couple of things happened. They deferred the election of a chair for that committee and until probably the next meeting, but were able to establish the actual committee dates. They meet 3 times a year. So October 18th is the next one, and then there's a February 21st and April 4th. Quite a few things were covered. About risk assessment was a topic. There's quite a number of things, but one of the interesting things came out of it was putting together an appreciation day for volunteers. And we're talking specifically about volunteer firefighters and those types of folks for some time next year. Rhonda and I will work together on that and getting that together. And that'll be we'll find sponsorship and various monies for that kind of thing. But I think it's important. Our volunteers need to be supported well. And there may even be, I don't know where we're going to go with it, but it could be like awards and that kind of stuff. But anyway, it's a volunteer appreciation dinner that is planned. They're a big part of our public safety in the region. So we talked about a few other things like cell service being an issue and the degradation. We talked about this at this board. And then we talked about the courthouse thing was interesting. And the possibility, wasn't aware that there's an issue with getting a warrant that takes, for them to get a warrant, they have to be in front of a judge. But if you're at a scene that you could use a warrant right away for, because by the time you got a warrant, that would be seen to be cleaned up. There's ways of dealing with that in other provinces that they talked about advocating for. So we want to explore that a little more. You can get a warrant in, I forget what the province was, but on the phone kind of thing, or you can do it immediately right there, get the warrant and go in and take care of the issue. So that's
part of that, the South Tiering office.
Yeah.
It was like a 24-hour phone thing.
Yeah.
In some states in British Columbia,
Yeah,
I think it was.
yeah.
And that's from the Crown Attorney. It's not from a judge, it's from the prosecution side
Right.
that has to agree for the RCMP or whatever police force it is to go in and do whatever it is they do. But they have to get that authorization first. So they're held up until they get the paperwork.
That's right. But there's these apparently have been expediting this process, to do it almost immediately. 24/7 basis almost. So that'd be a big help to our law enforcement, I believe, if they can do that. Anyway, it was a very good conversation. There's more to come, obviously. And it was a great kickoff meeting.
Thank you.
Just on that, just to follow up on the volunteer fire, so I was in St. Andrews, we were hoping to do a appreciation thing for the Steinway fire. We were actually thinking September 17th. I don't know if it makes sense for me to hold off, like what's the point now?
This is sometime next year.
Yeah.
Plus we're doing the fall fair.
You're at the fall fair. I'm just wondering if I'm better off holding it off. The free admission for all firefighters to Kingsbury and the aquarium and the barbecue.
I wouldn't hold off.
Okay. You,
Is that for all the firefighters in China?
yeah, it's gonna go tomorrow. It's gonna go after them.
17th, you said 17th?
17th, I know there's something every weekend now, like. Then you could kind of almost, you're not from the area, plan to go to that and then go to the fall fair too, right?
Well, yeah.
Is that on a Sunday?
Sunday,
Yeah,
yeah.
because Saturdays are our community day. 16.
Good time for fireworks, everyone. About 8 dark or 8 o'clock at night, that time. So, yeah.
I don't,
All days.
I don't think the firefighters are appreciating what appreciate me.
Turn their own.
Yeah, we appreciate it.
Yeah, while you're here, you want something?
Okay, special update.
I know it's not.
I know I did see the comparative balance sheet that came through. Yeah,
It's the summary statements. Bring it for you, I didn't bring it for me. Anyway, yeah, probably the summary income statement is the most representative document in that package. We can see what we've done is the end of July actuals versus end of July budget, and by budget, that's taking the annual budget, dividing it by 12 and multiplying by 7. So it doesn't take into account any seasonal fluctuations, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But it gives you the truest picture of that annual budget would be. Or no, sorry, no, this one is a
6 months. Isn't it?
no, that the 23 and that is the annual budget, full annual budget. I'm sorry. So you'd be looking at on the right side of that percentage of annual budget would be 58.3% would be our target. So if we are higher, that means we're over what we budgeted. If we are less, then we are under. So we are slightly up in solid waste from what we budgeted, but that's because we budgeted quite conservatively, but we're not up like we are normally up over budget.
It's just somewhat seasonal too, though, right? Things will change.
Yeah, a little bit, yeah. Planning is over the 58.3% because we didn't budget for the additional services we picked up this year, so we're in a surplus position in planning. And some things are it's just because we haven't spent the money yet. A couple of things will throw some stuff off with government grants and whatnot. We'll see 102.9% in community development. This is actually true. It's just because there's extra grants that go in there that
We're gonna have to rein Raymond in.
well, no, that's revenue. So that's but it's money we didn't budget for that goes in there and then comes out as an expense. And then in the expenditure part, pretty much where we need to be on the most part or less. A couple of things are higher. Again, that's where community development is way up high. And that's because there's certain things that we have to stick in there. We got a grant and then we have to pay it out. And so that's why that shows like that over budget. Particularly, there's a couple of consultant ones, like the Gemtech one for our strategic planning. We got money for that, and then we got out. So it does throw a couple of figures off, but overall, we are on track, wherever we need to be. We'll take any questions on that if anybody has any. Our total surplus at the moment is 270,000 for the organization.
Okay. Any questions for Pat? Okay. Thank you very much, Alice, for those staff reports and yours. Upcoming meetings, we've already talked about meeting with Minister Austin on the 7th. We have a special board meeting on the 14th of September. In prep for the budget presentation.
That is the budget presentation.
And then next scheduled regular board meeting is September 28th. Now, of course, there's two other meetings that are going to be taking place there on the 13th. But we'll get something sent out on those. Okay. Any last comments from the table before I ask for Q&A?
You say 13th of September?
Yeah.
Yeah, 13th of September, there was two meetings, one of the with Synergy and the other one was going to be with.
So Wednesday, I thought we were talking Tuesday. Wednesday's not good for me. That's a council.
Not a good day then for you,
Or maybe.
trying to mix that.
You can skip council.
Yeah,
What about Tuesday, the 12th?
I think.
Brad,
What time was it at?
5:30.
Yeah.
how about the 11th? Oh. Sorry.
At least Sunday morning.
Sunday morning, yeah.
6 a.m. meetings.
Yeah.
6 in the morning. I got a conflict with that.
Every day of the week.
I'll be up.
I knew. It's like
I'll be on my way to Wayne, so no bull.
Okay, how about we look at, can't do the 13th at all.
So I bowed out of the. And this is the budget talk one.
What we could do is we could push
Oh,
one,
yeah.
sorry, we could push one to the 14th. Calendar disclosed. Can we do, so could we do Synergy on the 13th? Are you available at that 5:30 number? For an hour?
Your council's at 6.
You're
My
at 6.
council is at 6, yeah.
Okay, so you're not good at 5:30. And your council meetings probably run a lot longer than mine. So on the 14th, we have
The budget.
the budget presentation. Could we just put the Synergy at the front of that and we'll just combine the budget presentation with our discussion on the budget? Do the two right then and there.
But Hollis wanted to have a budget meeting before the budget meeting.
Budget presentation.
We don't have to. I mean, I can just present the budget on the 14th and then we can just discuss it right then and there. We'll need a motion on the 14th to put it out for reviews.
So why don't we do it that way? That way we can get it all done on 14th.
So we got nothing on the 13th. Is that what you're saying?
No, no,
I lost.
oh, sorry.
If we don't have the pre-discussion and we don't have the meeting with Synergy before the 14th, it's gonna be really hard for me to vote on the budget that night.
Note that we're not voting to a budget.
No.
We're voting to put it out for.
But if we're putting it out, it is a quasi endorsement that we're okay with what's in it. I am concerned about doing that on the evening.
What other days do we got?
What about the week before? 5 or 6?
7th is the, yeah, and
6 is my council.
Yeah, I've got council on the 6th. I've got,
probably Thursdays are a good day because everybody else has councils on Tuesday or Wednesday.
Chris Austin went up there.
Yeah.
yeah, we've got Chris Austin on the 17th.
7th.
Sorry, on the,
So 5th.
That was doable.
just a whole month here.
First day of school. for those who have kids.
We're not doing SAM, no, right?
So you're looking at then the The fifth,
The fifth is,
September fifth is the first day of school.
Tuesday, right?
On Labor Day, yes, it says it's Labor Day.
it was-
I'm looking at 2023, that's why, or 2022, that'll help if I got the right year.
the fifth works for me. I can make that work on the fifth.
Tuesday.
How's everybody else looking on the fifth?
You're gonna give you the right year.
Yeah, for synergy in the budget meeting.
Do I send it you the same night?
Yeah.
So the fifth,
Let's try the fifth. I haven't heard anybody that couldn't make it on the fifth yet.
5:30.
And John, are you still gonna try and find a location for it?
Yes, well,
Okay.
I mean, you'll,
Okay,
That's budget review.
plus synergy. And starting at 5:30, location to be determined.
We're canceling the 14th.
no,
13.
the
13th.
13th is staying.
14, staying 13, so.
They're gonna give me all.
Sure.
We'll shoot for it. Okay, so on the fifth then. Any questions? Comments from the public?
No, I do not, Mr. Chair.
Before we go into close, have someone move that we adjourn the open meeting.
I know that we adjourned to close session.
Very much. We're now moving to close, so we'll